So what are we going to talk about today? We are going to talk about deal structure. And now, deals with no equity, right? So, little to no equity. How can you generate revenue from leads that come in, and how can you structure those deals to generate revenue when there's little to no equity? So what happens is when we're marketing, when we're using maybe RVM, or we're using direct mail or Google AdWords, you're going to have a ton of different leads coming in. And there's going to be literally 1 in 25 is going to be like a traditional wholesale deal, where you're going to have a motivated seller, they're going to have significant equity, they're going to want to sell, and they just want to sell now, they got to set it, get it sold. That is 1 in roughly 25, right? 1 in 25. So what happens with all those other 25 leads, right? So here's the deal. You know, when you go from, if you want to going from making $100,000, $200,000, $1,000 a year in this business, and you really jump, right? And people go, what's the jump? How do you jump from $100,000 to $200,000 a year? Make that big jump to $1 million. Well, what we're going to talk about today is a key element. 1 is lead generation, right? Which we're going to talk about that too. And 2 is being able to structure where instead of getting 1 out of 25, you get 5 or 6 out of 25. When that happens on the same marketing, your business changes. You take massive leaps and bounds in your business because you're able to do more deals with the exact same amount of leads coming in. So imagine, over the past 6 months, right? And there's some guys on here doing some 42 deals and, from Brian and stuff. Imagine all the leads that came in. What if you could, instead of getting, 1 or 2 or 3 deals, out of 20, you could get 4, 5, or 6 deals out of 25. It would change your whole business. Now, what happens is we talk about contract, lead to contract conversion. How many leads does it take for you to get a contract, right? In my business, it's 13. That number is 13. 13 leads to get a contract, right? So look at your business. How many leads does it take for you to get a contract? Most people that are newer, they're getting started, that number's in the 18 to 25 range, right? What if you could take that down to 13? It took you 13 leads to get a contract. It would change your whole business. You can make a jump from $250,000 to $500,000, right? You can make a jump from $500,000 to $1 million in revenue because you're not spending more money on marketing. You're optimizing and monetizing the leads that you have by what we're about to talk about today. All right, so you guys pumped? We got to talk about a lot of great stuff, and it's going to be. This obviously is going to be recorded. We're on Facebook, and you can watch it again and stuff. But the bottom line is going to be, pretty in depth, which is good. So here's one, Miguel. He says, okay, ARV 291 has a mortgage at 271, repairs about 20,000. Okay, let's talk about that one. So we got Miguel's deal. So how do we structure that deal? So Miguel, how do you spell Miguel? Miguel. So Miguel, right? So Miguel's deal is, so we've got 291, 4. Okay. Mortgage of 271. So he's saying ARV 271. I'm just going to make the numbers easy. I'm going to make it 291K, and I'm going to make it 271. And he's saying that it has about 20K in repairs. Okay, so this is MTG and then repairs. All right, Miguel, hold on to that one right there, because what we're gonna do is I'm gonna basically show you how to structure that deal right now on here, undo it. So first off, we got to have a couple baseline premises first. So before we get started here, what I'd like to do and get into this and structure it, and Miguel, thank you so much for posting that up there. It's great. We're going to use that as an example. There is a like button right there. See that little like button right there? Let's see if that like button works. So if you could, I greatly appreciate it. Hit that like button right now. Hit it on there. If you could hit that like button, I greatly appreciate it. What happens is it creates interaction with people, and if you could hit that. So hit the like button right now. See if the like button works. And there is going to be stuff that I'm going to say during this training right here, and you're absolutely going to love. You're going to go, oh my gosh, this is groundbreaking. This is going to change everything. And when I do that, hit the like button if you could. Hit the like button as many times as you could. I greatly appreciate it. Great. Okay, let's get into this, right? Let's get into how the work, and let's get into the premise, and then we're going to take Miguel's deal right here, the 291, this one right here. We're going to structure it so we can get some leads and deals to come in. All right, first off, number one, there's a couple different things. First off, we have to understand the essential structure of a deal with little to no equity in this particular case, right? So in Miguel's case, right here, we have, let me talk about first thing. There has to be motivation from a seller. Okay, there has to be motivation from a seller. If there is no motivation from a seller, then this is not going to work. Okay, you have to have motivation from a seller. And when you have motivation from a seller, we're going to talk about pitching the deal to the seller so the seller understands. And we're going to talk through the risk, and we're going to talk about some objections that they're going to overcome and how this is going to work. So in Miguel's particular deal right here, right, we have to, first off, we have to know, number one, on this mortgage, right, is this a good mortgage that we can wrap? Because what we're going to do is do a wrap transaction. We're going to wrap this existing loan. So what's a wrap? A wrap, so let's say this 271 loan, I might be making this too small. So let's say this 271K loan, right? This $271,000 loan. We've first off got to make sure it's a good loan that we can wrap, right? And number two, we got to find out what the heck is a wrap. A wrap. Now this right here might be theoretically at 5% interest for 30 years. That might be the loan, right? If you guys own real estate, you own a house or whatever, you might have a 30-year loan at 5% interest, and your payments are going to be whatever, right? So, so this is the deal, right? So 30 years. So what a wrap is going to do, and it's called an exact wrap, right? An exact wrap loan. So we're going to do what's called an exact wrap. Exact wrap loan, right? And this thing has kind of had it. So an exact wrap loan. That looks terrible, but that's okay. But just listen. It's exact wrap loan, right? So we get an exact wrap on the 271. This right here is how we handle the loan. We're going to talk about here in a second how to handle the actual title, how the title actually transfers. First off, we got to handle the loan first, and then we'll talk about the title transfer. But it's called an exact wrap loan. And what we're going to do is we're going to exact wrap it. It's going to be for 271, and it's going to be a 5%, but instead of 30 years, right, we're going to wrap it for the term of 5 years. So the seller's not tied up for 30 years. Now, I've seen them where people actually have wrapped them for 30 years, but we structure it on a 5-year basis, right? So after 5 years, what happens? Now, and we're going to talk about, we'll talk about the objection here in a second, but let's get the premise. An exact wrap loan, 271 on an exact wrap. Now, what's going to happen is this. We want to negotiate with our motivated seller. We want to negotiate with a motivated seller to keep the existing loan of 271 in place, right? We want to keep the 271 in place. And our goal is to negotiate with the seller and give them as little down payment as possible and to get at least a minimum of a 5-year term. Because we're going to turn around and we're going to sell, and this is called an arbitrage. We're going to sell, it's called the down payment arbitrage. So let's say we structure with the seller, right? And we agree to give them, basically agree to give them $3,000 down payment, So we give them a $3,000 down payment. You leave the $271 in place for 5 years, right? Payments on the $271. Let's just do a roundabout here. Let's go 271,000 times 5% interest equals 13.5 a year divided by 12. So that's about $1,100 a month. Then you get tax insurance. Let's call it about $1,500 a month. So you got the payments $1,500 a month on the 271, right? Right? And we got $3,000 down, 271. So what's our purchase price? What's our purchase price on this? We got 271 plus 3 is our total purchase price. So we got the purchase price is 274, right? 274 plus 271 plus 3. And now we don't have to come up with the 271. The 271 is essentially staying in place. So the only cash that is happening in this transaction right now is the $3,000. Okay, the $3,000. We're leaving the 271 in place and 3,000. So now think about it. This is the only money that's transpiring. So what if you wanted to keep this property as a rental, right? As a rental. You could literally give the seller $3,000 down. You could keep the 271 in place. Now, let's say this is a nice house, and I think Miguel said this house was in San Francisco, right? This house in San Francisco, and you keep or not San Francisco. It's in Las Vegas. So he said it was in Las Vegas, 271. Let's say it's a nice house, it's built, new house, whatever. He's saying it needs $20,000 in repairs, but guess what? A buyer could come in here and they could use this as a rental property. What if the rents in this area are $2,300 a month? Let's say theoretically it's $2,300 a month. So look at that. Now we have $800 a month in potential cash flow. $800 a month in cash flow if he wanted to keep it. So could Miguel keep this, give the seller $3,000 down, keep the 271 in place, and now purchase for property and own it as a rental? Could he do that? Yes. And what's out of his pocket? $3,000. $3,000. Now, he might have to put some fix up in the property because he said there's 20,000 repairs. Now, I don't want to get too detailed in the 20,000 to make it a rental. He might have to put 5,000 in, right? So here comes the question. How, as a real estate wholesaler, how can we make a profit off this deal? How can we make a profit off this deal? Well, let's talk about the total cash that's involved in the transaction so far. Now, remember, the seller's got to be motivated. The total cash in the transaction so far on a $274,000 purchase in real estate, the only cash needed is $3,000, right? So what we do is we sign a contract with the seller, and this is the key component right here. This is the addendum. This addendum is gold. This addendum right here, it has basically 4 components. And let me read them to you. First off, you sit down. So first off, buyer agrees to pay seller blank net at closing. Buyer agrees, and what I did was I filled this out. If you can see, this is the tall grass property, and I filled this in when I was negotiating. So buyer agrees to pay seller $3,000 net at closing, right? And then it says seller agrees to convey title via an agreement for sale on an exact wrap of the existing loan for the term of 5 years. That's it, right here. This is the verbiage needed to actually make this happen. So seller agrees to convey title via an agreement for sale. Now, you're wondering, what's an agreement for sale? Agreement for sale is essentially, it's like a land contract or contract for deed. It basically says that an agreement for sale, once the underlying loan, in this particular case, in Miguel's story, 271, once the underlying loan, the actual full title will transfer, right? You'll get fee title on an agreement for sale, right? And it will still be recorded. And you, if you want to do a refinance, you can. Typically, if you show 12 months of payments on the property, you can do a refinance, right? Now, the seller can't encumber the property because it's a recorded, right? They can't go get another loan for, 50 grand on the property if they had that. So that basically it's going to show in your name, it's going to show in an agreement for sale, it's going to show that a seller can't get it encumbered. Now, there's other terms for agreement for sale. It's called land contract. It's called contract for deed. It's similar to an agreement for sale, contract for deed. Or what happens is called a subject to. Now, subject to is when full title transfers. Now, when we're flipping a property, we're flipping it, right? And we're going to flip this to another investor. We don't want to flip it with a subject to because the title is actually transferring. So let me give an example. Chris, can you see over here? Can you see this far? Okay. So when we're doing a flip, right? We want to flip with an agreement for sale or what's called a contract for deed, right? Or a contract for deed. So we want to flip these right here. And the reason why is because the full title doesn't transfer. It's agreement for sale or a contract for deed on the property. If there's a default situation, and here's the reason why we do it on a flip only. On a default situation, if the person you're flipping it to defaults on this, it's very easy. Basically, the agreement for sale, their contract for deed gets canceled. It gets completely canceled depending on the amount of equity they have in the property. And it can be as soon as 45 days. It could be up to 90 to 120 days, depending on how much equity. But more times than not, because they're putting down a small amount of money on the property, then literally 45 to 60 days, this becomes they're in default situation. The agreement for sale gets canceled and the property reverts back to the seller in this situation, right? Now, what I tell the seller is say, listen, if for some reason, right, there is a default situation and they don't make payments, I'll step in. And I'll step in and I'll make good on this agreement for sale. And guess what? I flipped it again and I've made the arbitrage, which we haven't talked about yet. We're going to talk about that in a second. Now, if you're going to hold the property, so for you, you're going to keep the property, right? You want to keep it as a rental and you want to hold it. You want to do a buy and hold on it, right? Then you want to do what's called a subject to transaction, and you're going to take title. So you're going to take title to the property. That's when you are going to get a warranty deed, a grant deed, a general warranty deed, whatever the case with that, whatever state you're in, what's it called, you're actually going to get deed to the property. Why? Because guess what? You're not going to default on the deal, right? You want to have control of the property, 100% control of the property. You're not going to default on it. So that's what's an agreement for sale. The second part is the loan amount shall not exceed $271, because what happens is the seller is going to disclose to you how much the loan amount is. So we put a not to exceed number in. What if the loan amount on the payoff comes in at like $290? I mean instead of $271, it's like, in this particular case, $278. Now you can go back and renegotiate this $3,000. So loan amount shall not exceed X. And the payments, including taxes and insurance, shall not exceed Y. And over here we got $1,500, right? We got $1,500 for the payments. Well, what if the payment comes out and they disclose to you that their taxes and insurance payments on this potential $271, and I made up this number of $1,500 because we don't have that. That $1,500, if it comes in to be $2,000, guess what? You can renegotiate the deal or back out of the deal. And buyer agrees to pay settlements of all mortgages, liens, judgments, late fees. Now, this is gold, what I'm going to talk about. And I'm going to finish with this example. I'm going to talk about pre-foreclosures, secondary liens, on how you can literally build equity out of thin air, okay? So stay tuned, keep watching. If you could do me a favor, press the like button right now. Press the like button as much as you can. Press the like button, share this if you can, because we got some killer stuff. Now, we're gonna structure this, and we're gonna structure it in a way right now where I can show you how to flip this and make money, okay? Now, Here's the thing. Oh, here we go. Okay, so I'm using blue. So anyways, so here's the deal, right? Miguel's deal. So we got $3,000 down payment, $271 for 5-year term, $1,500 payments not to exceed. And you're going to write that in the contract. This is exactly what happened. Buyer agrees to pay seller $3,000 net at closing. Buyer agrees to convey title via an agreement for sale because our goal is going to flip it. Loan amount shall not exceed $271 for the term of 5 years, right? Payment amount shall not exceed $1,500. Boom. Now we have our structured deal. Now we have our deal under contract. Now we have control of the property. Now we're going to flip it. We're going to flip the property, and we've done an agreement for sale or a contract for deed, right? Now we're going to flip the property. How can we flip it? Well, now, and you know, for the $20,000 in repairs, right? In this particular case, you get $271, $20,000 repairs. It looks like there's no equity in the deal. What happens is when you're turning around and you are flipping with seller financing, especially in this market, right? The repair number, your number might be a little high on the repair number, but a buyer's going to come in, they're going to look at it, and they're going to say, hey, listen, I can control and own a property for little to no money down, so the repairs are something extra they can put into it. Now, I bet, and I'm willing to bet Miguel, right? Since we're this is your particular deal. This 291, Miguel, I bet you could find higher comps in the area. So Miguel, let me ask you a question. You're in Las Vegas. This particular deal's in Las Vegas. What is the highest comp on this particular deal, Miguel? Do you have if you could let me know. So what's the highest comp, right? What's the highest comp? So 291 might be an ARV if you're going to fix and flip it, but what is the high? Is it 300, 305, 310? What is the highest comp that is sold within the neighborhood, within a 1 mile radius in the last 3 months? Do you have that number? So we got 301,077. Okay, perfect. So the highest comp, and that's what we want to look for when we're selling the property. So we got the highest comp here is 301K, 301,000. So look at this right here, 271. We got literally 30,000 in potential equity. 3,000 now we're controlling the property, right? So let's talk about flipping this. Now we're going to flip the paper. What we're going to do is we're going to put it out to the market, put it to your list, put it to your buyer's list, put bandit signs out, put it on Craigslist, and you're going to put seller finance deal, seller financed, right? And you're going to put $18,000 down payment, right? Seller carry $271,000 loan, 5 years at payments of $1,500. Right? And I can talk about advanced strategies on how to make an arbitrage on the down payment, especially if you got low down payments and stuff like that. But let's just. So now think about this. You got it under contract for $3,000 down, $271,000 seller carry, 5-year term, $1,500. Now we have it under contract for that. Now let's flip it. We're going to flip it on an agreement for sale or a contract for deed. I'm getting excited because I'm dropping everything. And we say $18,000. This is our marketing. And you put out seller financing, $18,000 down, seller carry $271 for the term of 5 years at $1,500 a month. Rents out there are $2,300 a month, $800 a month potential cash flow. Who wants it? Now, I can tell you, in this super hot market, your phone is going to blow up. These deals fly off the shelf. They're our best deals. Now, the goal is, right, so someone can buy this property. They don't have to go to get a bank loan. They don't have to qualify. You don't really need to get an appraisal on the property. You don't have to have no banks involved. That might be the title, no banks, right? Seller financing, $18,000 down, $271 carry, 5-year, $1,500, $800 potential cash flow on current rents in the property. Your phone's going to blow up. Now, You bring it to closing, and what are you going to do? You're going to assign your contract. You're not going to double escrow it, right? You're going to assign your contract. You're going to sell your agreement for sale, right? You're going to do an assignment, right? You're going to assign your position, this contract, in the deal to the buyer. But before you do that, you're going to get a contract on the property first with the seller, and you're going to get with the buyer, and you're going to get a $2,500 non-refundable deposit. And then once you have the contract, right? In this particular case, you have the contract. Your contract is going to be pretty much exactly the same, but now you're going to turn around and sell it to a buyer. The buyer's going to put $18,000 down, 271 carry, 5 years, $1,500 a month, right? That's how the structure is going to be on your contract with your buyer. And then after you get the $2,500 non-refundable deposit, then you instruct your title company to do an assignment and you sell your contract. So let's figure out how much you make, Miguel. Let's figure out how much you make. Well, what's the total cash involved in our transaction? Total cash. Total cash involved in this over $280,000+ transaction in real estate. Our total cash involved is $18,000. So the buyer's going to put $18,000 down. He's going to pay his closing cost, right? What's going to happen to you is $18,000, of which $3,000 of the $18,000 is going to go to the seller, and the balance is going to go to you. So Miguel, in this particular case, right? This particular case, 18,000 minus 3,000 is $15,000. So what's your assignment fee? You got it. Your assignment fee is $15,000. You took a property, Miguel, there was a $271,000. You got the highest comp of 301. $271,000 that you would have passed on. Passed. You're looking at it, there's no equity. You'd have passed on the deal, right? And you're going, hey, how did you get 18,000, Jonathan? Here's the deal. This 18,000 right here is you essentially, this is what you sold the property for. You sold it to a buyer. $18,000 down, seller carry $271 for 5 years at $1,500 a month, and potential cash flow, let's say if the rents are $2,300, $800 a month potential cash flow, right? So, see what I'm saying? Is that in this particular case, it's 18,000's down minus the 3,000 that goes to the seller. The 18,000, where does that come from, Jonathan? It comes from the buyer. 18,000 comes from the buyer as a down payment. 271 stays in place, 5 years at $1,500 a month. 18 minus 3 is your $15,000 assignment fee. How many deals, this is the question, how many deals have you passed on because you thought there was only $20,000 in equity? And there's no way, because no buyer's going to buy a wholesale deal at $20,000. And you walked away even though the seller was motivated. Even though they're motivated, right? You walked away from that deal. See, you can structure this with any deal. The caveat is that the seller must be motivated. I'm going to talk about here in a second how to pitch this deal to the seller, okay? How did you determine to ask $18K? Well, your goal, because I just built in a $15,000 profit, that's it. If I wanted to build in a $20,000 profit, I'd ask for $23,000 down. Right? I put it right here. So the key to this thing is the lower the down payment, the longer the term, and the lower the payments if there's a spread, right? So let me repeat that, Jonathan, because that's a good question. The lower the down payment to the buyer, the longer the term. We get a 5-year term on your agreement for sale, right? Agreement for a 5-year term, and the most amount of cash flow you can get, and the most amount of potential equity you can get, right? Those 3 things. So you're looking for the least amount down, the longest term on the loan, if there's some cash flow and if there's some equity, right? Now, if there's not a lot of equity, right, and there's not a lot of cash flow, then the lower down, the longer the term, the better. If you have a ton of cash flow and you have a ton of equity in the property, you can ask for a larger down payment instead of $18,000, if that makes sense. Now, this is a good question from Eileen. Should a servicing company be used to deal? Yes, absolutely. Servicing company. So a third-party servicing company will collect all the payments, right, that are made, the $1,500 a month. They're going to collect them. They're going to pay the mortgage company, right? And they're going to give a statement to your seller, and they're going to give a statement to you. It's going to be completely audited. So if you want to refinance out of it, right, at any time to get a new loan on the property, guess what? You can do that because you're going to have statements that have showed payment history on the property. And it keeps everything in order, so you're not paying the bank and stuff like that. Servicing companies roughly run like $10 a month for a servicing company, and that would be, added in there. So you would tell the title company that you want to have it, the loan serviced with their recommended or preferred servicing company. So great question. Yeah, so Jonathan, this $15,000 is an assignment fee. Okay, that's an assignment right there. So you do an assignment fee right there for the $15,000, and you assign your position out, and you're done, and you're out of the transaction, right, for that $15,000. Okay. Any other questions before I proceed on how to pitch this to the seller?